Tasmina Amichek, welcome to Indie Scot News Midweek Review. You hosted a National Assembly of the Alba Party last weekend. Now, most voters are not members of political parties. Can you describe briefly, in layman's terms, what a National Assembly is?
Basically, it's a non-policy making body, but a body that allows members of a political party, in our case Alba, to come together to discuss and inform policy. This is something that most political parties should have if they don't, and something from the very offset that Alba knew we wanted to have, simply because not everybody feels confident speaking at conference, taking to the stage, the platform. Sometimes you feel a bit more comfortable just asking questions online, with their face blanked out. Right. And I suppose in today's age of COVID environment and safety being paramount as it rightly should be, it gives the opportunity for people all over Scotland, as the case may be in our case, to come together to discuss issues of great importance. And there'll be no impediment to them doing so by virtue of where they may live, etc. So I think it's great, and we've had two National Assemblies preachers so far, both with a fantastic attendance, thoroughly enjoyable.
Okay, why was the topic of an independent Scotland in Europe chosen specifically?
Well, our topics, as I say, this is our second one. The inaugural one was just before Christmas, and an independent Scotland is what was about. Our aim and ambition is to assist in the delivery of independence in Scotland as a matter of urgency. Okay. Therefore, the first National Assembly we had was about currency, the currency of an independent Scotland, and this one was about our relationship with Europe, because, Peter, if we're to have a referendum or an electoral test, as we've been promised, next year, then these discussions have to be had now, these ideas have to be aired now, and people need to understand what an independent Scotland can look like and how exciting a prospect it is for us to move away from the old days of the Union, which don't work for Scotland, to days of an independent Scotland and our relationship with Europe and indeed the rest of the world. Hence the subject of EFTA was chosen, which of course is Alba Party policy in terms of what our relationship with Europe should be post-independence.
Right. Did ordinary members have input and influence on the debate before and after? There's a lot of criticism these days that some political parties are becoming very top-down, so to speak.
Well, we have tried very hard, and myself as chair, am committed to member participation in everything that we do. Now, in advance of the May election, we had a manifesto that committed Alba to EFTA membership. That's where we saw a destination as a really important definitive point for us as an independent country. That was ratified at conference, Alba's first party conference in September. And of course, members were able to come. And of course, our party conference wasn't just open to delegates. All members could come to party conference and speak to that motion, and indeed a whole host of others. Right. Despite that, and notwithstanding that, and it being adopted as party policy, there's party policy, and then there's how you get that party policy out to the public. And therefore, listening to the membership who are, on the ground, and at the very great strength of Alba is our people on the ground. We are, it's where our supporters are. They're the ground. They do the groundwork, and they're the beating heart of the independence movement. So, getting their input on how we then get this message out to the people of Scotland is hugely important, and listening to their views is great. And of course, offering hugely that the relationship with Europe is going to be complex. Negotiating that is going to have a level of complexity, and therefore it's very important that we start to marshal our arguments now, because although we may understand it because we're politicians, we like politics, we're interested in it, we have to get that message out to the wider public as to how Scotland can be better by regaining a place in Europe, and we think EFTA is the best option for that. So it offers a platform to develop discussion, to bandy ideas about and take from it the very best of it to advance the cause of Scottish independence.
Right. George Caravan mentioned that Alba could send a delegation, perhaps, to EFTA HQ and visit the various national capitals, and even raise the issue of EFTA membership at press conferences. Is that now being considered seriously by the party leadership?
Well, yes, indeed, absolutely. And again, a benefit of it, of the National Assembly that we had, was that idea came out of it. And of course, there were the great benefit of the National Assembly online in these instances, as I said, as well as participation from across Scotland online, which makes it accessible, is a chat function allows people to post comments and questions. And that was an idea that had some support. So absolutely something that we can consider, something that the National Executive can discuss at our next meeting, something that we can take to our spring conference, which we're planning to be an in-person conference in March, because the online National Assemblies are great and they have a function, but they don't also take away from the party policy making bodies, one of course, which is spring conference and of course autumn conference.
No. In practical terms, you talk about members interacting. How did that actually work? I mean, if I listen to George Kervin, could I, once he's finished, put my hand up and say, I'd like to ask George Kervin about that?
Absolutely. So the way we ran it throughout the Assembly, because I chaired it, was I invited speakers to give 5 to 10 minute opening remarks, which they did to set the scene and to set out their stall, because of course our National Assembly had members of the SNP in it, and Jim Sillars and Phil, and from our Phil Boswell, and from an ALBA perspective also we had George Kervin, who's a member. The point being, before I answer the rest of your question, Peter, is that the independence movement is huge and it needs to embrace everybody. Yeah. Because advancing the cause of Scottish independence not only is a noble cause, but it belongs to everybody in it. And therefore, making it as inclusive as possible is very important. And ALBA will use every platform we have to bring people from across the independent spectrum to give their views. So they gave a 5 to 10 minutes input, and then I opened it up to questions. So people posted their questions in the chat function. I read out the questioner's name and posed the question and asked all speakers to give an answer to that question. So I took 2 or 3 questions at a time. And then in the last half hour, I invited those on the National Assembly, and there were over 250 people on it, to raise their hand if they wanted to be visible and ask their question directly to the speakers. So they were able to do that as well. So there's a couple of different elements where people could pose their questions.
Okay. Now, on that topic of as wide an audience as possible, I understand that participation obviously is for party members only, but are there any plans to restream it or make it available online for non-members who obviously can't participate, but perhaps could see what ALPA is about and what they talk about?
Very much so, Peter. I mean, a number of clips have already been put online so people can see that on Twitter and Facebook, etc. So the party's putting them up. But I think now moving forward, and I think the next National Assembly, which I anticipate, and here's a little exclusive for you, Peter, will be on the We ALBA book. That should be open to everybody. So my intention would be, as chair and subject to agreement, of course, of the National Executive Committee, that be open up for mass participation and involvement. And that includes inviting journalists in so they can ask questions and listen to what we're talking about, because we need coverage. We want people to understand what our programme is. And that's really important.
Exactly. Well, what I've seen from grassroots is that there was a hugely enthusiastic response to the format and to the discussion itself. People have said, it's given me hope again. Is that the feeling you've got from grassroots and from members?
Very much so. I mean, Peter, anyone who knows me knows that I'm enthusiastic, I'm bubbly, I'm a vivacious character, and I like to draw people into discussion and conversation and feel like they can participate. And, as a woman of colour, as a woman from a minority community, I know how difficult it can be for people to feel that there is somewhere that they can speak their mind. And of course, a lot, despite talking about freedom of speech, one can't help but feel concerned that people, and women in particular, feel that they don't have the opportunity to talk freely about what they believe in and what's important to them. So creating a platform where people feel comfortable to do so is hugely personally important to me. And I'll continue to create these opportunities for people to do so. Peter, no one holds infinite wisdom on any particular topic. And we said it in the 2014 referendum, right leading up to it, Scotland has a wealth of talent in our human capital. And listening to ideas from other people is really important. And that's what we have to do. And I find that, National Assemblies offer a great opportunity to do that, to explore political thought. We're the great inventors, we're the people with great talent from history, and that needs to be part of our future. Absolutely. So rather than telling people what we think we should think, or they should think, we want to know what they're thinking. Right. Because sometimes people come up with ideas that you haven't thought of, because maybe you've not experienced that aspect of life. So you start thinking, right, we need to legislate for that. We need to think about that. So, for me, it's hugely instructive, hugely inspiring. And just from the comments from people who are at the Assembly, what struck really a chord with me in my heart was people felt that there was an opportunity once more to talk about things that are really important to them. Yeah. And we moved from EFTA into fuel poverty and what it means for people who can no longer pay their bills. And, it just brings it right back from the big ideas of Scotland as part of Europe and what that can mean for us, from a whole variety of perspectives, to right now in daily Scotland, why and how people are suffering, why independence is an immediate imperative. Yeah. We can't afford to have the luxury of thinking about it in the future. Yeah. We require to implement the mandates to deliver independence now, to end the suffering of people, the unnecessary suffering of people right now.
Right. You mentioned the topic of the next assembly will be the Wee Alba book. Could you tell us a little bit about who is authoring that particular publication?
It's being authored by Rob McAlpine and edited by Stuart Windsor with Scotland, Stuart Campbell, obviously with some inputs from some in the party as well. So it's really exciting.
Indeed.
I'm sure Alex had said in previous meetings that it's almost done, and we're very excited about that. So we anticipate that hopefully the next National Assembly next month will be able to focus on that before, and at the same time as it starts to go out to people across Scotland, because it will cover and requires to cover the whole range of issues. And you can't put independence as a question to people unless you discuss in depth what that's actually going to mean for them, and how the circumstances of 2012 to 14, when we had the white paper, how they have changed, and therefore how the independence argument has to reflect that. But I'm sure the Alba book will also reflect the urgency that I've discussed of taking the people of Scotland to the destination that we need to get to secure a better future for them, for our children.
Well, that's great to hear, because I read once again there's a Freedom of Information Act request which has revealed that there has been no activity on independence preparations since the Holyrood election on the Scottish Government side, which is deeply worrying. Tasmina, I know you're a busy woman. A few quick fire questions to end with.
Okay.
Will the Alba logo be on the ballot paper in the upcoming local elections?
Yes.
Great. On the upcoming elections, again, do you foresee another media blackout?
Who knows? Who knows? But again, it's a different type of election. It's an election at local level, and what matters is what local candidates are saying and which local candidates can inspire the confidence of their potential constituents. I do think that what we're experiencing now at Westminster, and should I say, I'm not interested in calling for the resignation of Boris Johnson. He's irrelevant to Scotland. Who is replacement? I mean, people are calling for his resignation. Who are they suggesting replace him? That politics should be irrelevant to Scotland. We should be expending our energies on Scotland's future, not the past, the future of Westminster. Yeah. So I think people, to bring it back to local level, I think people are heartsick of politicians. I think people want to gel with people who understand their personal circumstances. We're going into local elections where fuel poverty is high on the list. We're going to local elections where we know children are living in poverty. We know parents are choosing not to feed their children. We're going to local elections where women feel silenced, where girls can't access single-sex toilet facilities in our schools. Yeah. And we're going into local elections where we know independence has to be up on the agenda, because only that can change all of the things I talked about. Yeah. So I hope that this positive message that Alba will bring, a positive message for change, a positive message for the future of Scotland, an inspiring one that we believe in ourselves, not resigning ourselves to futures dictated for us and to us. Hopefully that will inspire the media to cover what we're saying, because surely the media want to cover the future as well as dwelling on the past. Yeah. And I think the future is independence for Scotland, and those who are prepared to shout and talk about that will be the ones who will be successful. And I am convinced that Alba candidates will be amongst those.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I have to ask you, yesterday and today's big story is the Crown Estate bid process, the first conducted under devolution. Any immediate reactions?
It would be remiss of me to say anything other than I've got an entire piece dedicated to that in the National coming out on Wednesday. Okay. And my views, let's just say I haven't held back, but I never do. Okay. I'm less than impressed, I think, would answer the question in a sentence. And today, hopefully, people are already reading my very strong views about what's happening in relation to wind power. Yes. We shouldn't lose again another great asset of Scotland.
I have two short questions from our panelists who will be coming on after this interview. Dr. Mark McNaught has quite a personal question, quite quick. You don't have to answer, but you can think about it. He wonders if you'd be on his show tomorrow night, Thursday, Building the Scottish State. You can get back to him.
I will get back to Mark.
Okay, super. He'll see that. And finally, a question from our other panelist, Denise Finlay. A personal question. What are your motivations for taking on the Scottish and British establishment by being chair of ALPA?
My motivations are and will remain delivering Scottish independence for my country, a country which my father chose when he came from Pakistan many years ago to make his home, the country which will be the home of my children who never want to live anywhere else. And it matters to me that country is fair, just, offers rights that everyone can enjoy, and everyone should be able to benefit from what Scotland has to offer, not just the few. So I'm hugely excited about our future. And, you know, being part of a new political party, Peter, it's a huge thing, and a huge amount of work and effort has gone into it, but it's worth it. And the people of Scotland are worth it, and our country's worth it.
Yasmeen Ahmed Sheikh, thank you so much for coming on Indie Scot News Midweek and sharing your thoughts with us.
A pleasure, Peter. Thanks for having me on.
Bye now. Neil Mackay of All Under One Banner, welcome to Indie Scot News Midweek. Neil, you've sent out a series of tweets and social media posts this week announcing an emergency march. Why an emergency march?
Well, the British state is in crisis from top to bottom, as we see it. So you've got this crisis over the government, over the Prime Minister, the conduct. As we've seen through the last few years since Boris Johnson and his government were elected, it's been corruption scandal after corruption scandal. And I think this is the thing that's just, you know, the straw that's breaking the camel's back. This has just come along, and it's a particularly sensitive issue. Everybody thinking, what were we doing? What did we have to do back then when they were partying it up? So it really is, that seems to be what's brought this to, bringing this to a point, bringing this to a climax. And we've taken advantage of the situation because there's a huge public demand to get out onto the streets, full stop. People just want to get out there. People want to move out of lockdown. They want to broaden their horizons. They want to see other people. So you've got that anyway. Then you've now got this crisis of the British state with the government. Look at the royals, they're in total disarray. The whole thing is falling apart. Everybody can see it's falling apart. And linked in with this, it's not just this. We need the Scottish government, obviously, as well as a powerful mass movement on the streets to get out there, to take advantage of this.
Yeah, exactly. Next question is obviously when and where, Neil?
Well, when and where? It's this Saturday. So Saturday, the 22nd of January at Glasgow. We're going to be gathering at George Square, and we are going to be going to Glasgow Green. The exact start time and the exact route will be known, I think, by tomorrow or Wednesday. All of that will be going up online. So everybody will have all the information. It's fully approved, fully legal demonstration with the authorities.
Okay. If we want to get the most up-to-date information on the times, places and route, where can we get that, Neil?
Yeah, best place to go is just the All Under One Banner's social media. Go to Twitter, look to the pinned tweet on Twitter, or go to the event page on Facebook.
Okay, the event page on Facebook. Now, Neil, there's been a couple of imposter AUB sites. Could you just give me the exact Twitter?
Yeah, so it's the only one is at AUOB Now, NOW, AUOB Now.
Okay.
And Facebook is at All Under One Banner with caps on each letter. Okay,
great stuff. Speakers, is this a cross-party event, Neil?
Well, it's across Scotland. The idea is it's a cross-Scotland event. So obviously it's a march for independence, regardless of the broader political circumstances that we're in, the crisis and the very many forms of that, and the fact we want an end to Tory rule forever, and that's Westminster rule. for anyone that doesn't know it. It's all Tory rule. It's always been Tory rule. Apart from that, it's an independence march fundamentally. So yes, we want to bring in independent supporters, whether you're new to it, whether you've just realised the British state is a total illusion, or you've realised it for some time. We do have Neil Hanvey MP for the Alba Party. We've got Stephen Flynn for the SNP. They're probably going to be our only two parliamentarians, and then there'll be a number of individual campaigners as well. So you're talking maybe half a dozen speakers. We're not wanting to keep everybody out too long. It's January.
Yeah.
With a short walk, you know, gather early, short walk, and we'll have a short rally for about 30, 40 minutes, and then we can all go home or go to the pub.
Excellent. Neil, any precautions people should be taking? I know it's outdoors, the best place to be, but should there be any distancing or mask wearing? Or
no, I don't think there should be. If you want to do that, I think you should feel free to do that. People should respect what you want to do. Face coverings, it's outdoors, so you don't need to wear face coverings. If you want to, though, please do. If you don't feel well, please don't attend. Or if you're worried about, you know, the impact of this, please stay away. But if you don't need to wear a face covering and you don't need to keep distancing, it's up to you though what you want to do.
Sure. Neil, there's been a wee bit of feedback on this, not entirely positive. People say, enough of this marching in the streets. We know we want independence. We should really be marching to Butte House and Holyrood and demanding these independence referendums that we've been promised time and again. What's your response to that?
Well, they're totally missing the point. People that are talking, I understand the frustration. I understand this powerless feeling about how we just feel it's not moving anywhere in Scotland, despite all the mandates and the promises. And we need that action. We need that parliamentary action. But I don't think that's going to achieve it. Even if you manage to hypothetically get decent numbers at something like that, I don't think that's going to achieve it. Firstly, right, it's not going to achieve the desired aim. Secondly, more importantly, you would not get numbers to that event, to that demonstration. It would be a handful of people. People need to take a step back and look to where we're at right now and what's going on right now. And right now, this is what's going on. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But certainly, we've got to look at building up a mass movement. And that means mobilising as many independent supporters as we possibly can. We need to get back out onto the streets. And mass mobilisations do a great deal of good for the cause, as we know. I mean, they could write a book about it. But the point is, you know, these are very positive, big things, and we need to get behind them.
Neil, thanks very much for popping by, and good luck with the march on this weekend.
Thanks very much. I hope to see everyone there. Cheers.
Bye now.